It's time for Pot of the Dead. Join us.
Pulse out. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Sure. We're talking about whatever the hell we want.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. What is podcast?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to Pot of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me as always are the two ladies, Stephanie and Natasha.
Hi, guys.
Oh,
On today's episode, we are covering the 2001 Japanese horror film Pulse.
yes, we are.
Going into this is our first episode for Foreign Film February. We're a little late to it. It's our party. We can do whatever the fuck we want. Did you girls have any ideas of this film or Japanese horror in general?
I had never experienced any Japanese horror or any I don't know if I've even watched a horror movie that was foreign up until this point. So this was definitely not in that realm. So no, I have zero experience and I'm pretty sure any. Yeah. Now I can't say that. I've definitely touched on it now. So
As far as Japanese horror, I've only ever seen the Americanized version of The Ring, The Grudge, I believe. But for this movie, I didn't really have any preconceived notions. I knew nothing about it. The name kind of caught me off guard. It wasn't what I was expecting based on the title, I guess. But
yeah, that's true. It doesn't fit it very well, I don't think.
Well, and that's the American localization of the title, because the actual Japanese title to it is Kairo, which translates to circuit.
Why do they do that? Because they did that for other movies too. I feel like if they kept the actual name.
Yeah, circuit would have made way more sense than Pulse.
Yeah, circuit makes a lot more sense than Pulse, because Pulse could be interpreted 1,000 different ways.
Yeah. So, but this movie, like I said, came out in 2001. It has kind of split views on it and stuff when it came out. This didn't actually get much of an American release upon its initial coming outs and stuff like that. But let's see here. So Rotten Tomatoes gives this film an 6.8 out of 10. And
yes, it does.
The critical consensus says that it's a sinister, spine-tingling techno horror whose artistry lies in the power of suggestion rather than a barrage of blood and guts or horror shop special effects.
Mm-hmm.
So I 100% agree with that. It definitely is a film of tension, and not to compare it to anything else, but considering
low tension,
did some homework. Yeah. This one would be called low tension.
Yeah.
Spooky tension.
Yeah. But there's a lot of cool stuff in this film that I really do like. But also here's some stuff that you girls might agree with, because I believe that I like this movie more than both of you.
That would be probably very, very true.
Probably
you okay
very.
over there?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
So Entertainment Weekly was critical of the film, writing that watching Pulse, you could almost die of anticipation, commenting that nothing in the 2 snail-paced hours comes close to a shred of sense.
Yes. Yes. 100% yes.
agree. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The Seattle Times criticized the film's storyline and length, writing, While it's rattling your nerves, Pulse leaves your brain wanting more. And The Village Voice called the film at least a half an hour too long.
Yeah.
Which that's what I said.
That's true.
That's what I said right after watching it. There's a lot for me in this film. There's a lot that I like in this film. Most of I'm a big fan of atmospheric horror, and that's what the Japanese do in spades.
It is loud. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of the sound design and everything in here is really cool. The only sound design I was not crazy about was basically any time that you are about to witness a ghost. So no spoilers here or anything, but this is like a ghost film and everything. But there's always like this like woo, like
Ghost!
choir voice.
Yeah,
and
literally.
and now that might be lost in translation in a way where like that might be very well like received in their culture. That might be their Hitchcock kind of like braid. So like that might be like well drenched in their culture and stuff like that. But for me, it just that comes off real hokey. But the amount of just like white noise and stuff in this film makes it feel almost claustrophobic at times, even when they're in these large areas. So that is probably one of the two things in this film that I give like really high grades on. Is the sound design and stuff was just fucking awesome in my book.
So you have
I'm glad you're doing that.
So you have reviews from like American journals and things like that. Do we have anything from like the Japanese community, knowing that this is such a far stretch from like your traditional American horror movie?
I've got one, and it's barely a review, but it's a ringing endorsement of this film from the Japanese director Takashi Miike, who Takashi Miike is a like hugely regarded horror, action, samurai, like all sorts of stuff. He's done some of like the most fucked up horror films that I've ever seen. He's also done some of the most amazing samurai films I've ever seen. He does anime remakes and all this shit. Like this dude pumps out so many fucking movies. It's insane. So with that in regard, Takashi Miike has said that this is the only film that has frightened him as an adult.
Oh, wow.
So it must have like, it must really fucking hit like with their culture and stuff, because what I'm able to compare it to is like Ringu, which is the Japanese version of The Ring, like the original Ring, and then Ju-on, which is the original Grudge. So with how those films are, because they're also like The Ring came out a couple years before this. I had it wrong. I thought this one came out first, but the Ring came out a little bit before. I believe Ju-on's like right around this time and everything, and just kind of seeing how the Japanese view death and ghosts and stuff like that is such a change on like what we're used to and stuff. Because like without like giving anything away or anything, the ideas and stuff that this posits are very sad and very depressing.
Yeah, that's true.
About death and the afterlife and stuff like that, but it's not used in a way of like, we're gonna make this real sad. It's literally like the pondering of the afterlife, and we'll get into more of that when we get past spoiler territory. But those are the things like that I really do like about it, because it's not horror in the fact of like what I saw was so scary. It's the horror of like really thinking about life and death, and that nobody knows what is after life and death, and just trying to figure that out. And, you know, you could be right on what you think is after, but you could also be horribly wrong. And there are some things that are really hard to sit with that could be eternity in a certain way. And that's what this movie plays in, is showing you like, you know, it could be worse. It could be way worse.
Yeah. Well, if the movie actually portrayed it like that, and it does, I'm not saying it doesn't, but like if it actually resonated in that area, like you liked it enough, it was entertaining enough, I think that storyline would have crossed over well. Even the translation from, you know, because we just read it because we didn't actually do dubbing, and
yeah, we did all Japanese for this one.
Yeah,
to get the proper actors' reactions.
Correct,
and
and so that was good. Like I prefer to watch movies that way, but especially if they're foreign films. But yeah, it was, the movie's premise was what the premise was, but the execution is where I feel like it was severely lacking in. Like if you had told me that like what you're explaining was the movie we were watching, I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so good. And then what we watched, and I'm kind of like, yeah, it's a movie.
It didn't, it didn't Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. You can cut this part out because I think I'm just going to ramble for a second. But what you said,
we're leaving it in.
Great. What you said was very like introspective and very like thought provoking. But in the movie, like Steph said, the way it's played out, it's boring, and it takes a lot to get to that point. I think, at least for me, I was confused a lot. I was bored.
Yeah,
I remember you telling me that you were pretty confused watching it, which this film definitely does not give you its narrative.
It doesn't hold your hand
at all. It just kind of, it's like a very slice of life film, and things start happening, and you just kind of put things together. Like Steph and I were asking a lot of questions to each other while watching the film. Like, wait, are these the rules of this film? Does this make sense? Blah blah blah. But upon reading, because I came out of the film with a score that, like, I like the movie. I'm not saying that, like, I love the movie or anything like that, but I do like it. I will watch this again and stuff like that. Specifically because of having read some stuff about it and what they were attempting to do with this film. I want to go into it with a different perspective, because I went into it with the perspective of, I've seen Ringu, I've seen Ju-on, and I was comparing it to those films. So I knew the atmosphere was going to be there. But those movies are based around like legitimate Japanese folklore ghosts. And this one is like it's referred to as like techno horror. It's its own thing. It is just basically because of the internet, Childish Gambino's album Because of the Internet, that came out, and then for some reason ghosts are showing up, and that you get that in the trailer. That's no fucking spoilers, you know. But and even then, going into spoiler territory, I don't think there's a lot of spoiler, like, because the narrative of it isn't like twisty turny and stuff like that.
It's pretty straightforward. It's just the way that they're getting through the storyline. So like, you know what you're getting into. It's exactly what they say it is. It's not like you can spoil a whole lot, because you have to watch the movie to understand it. But
and then you still have to kind of watch it again to understand it, really. So.
Yeah, and then you have to try to stay awake, because that was Tasha had a problem with it. I usually don't fall asleep during movies, but I was just like, I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, is this over yet? Is this over yet? And then I'd look and it's been 5 minutes and I'm like, this movie is 2 hours long almost. And it's very slow.
I definitely got you with that, because I was like, you're like, how long is this movie? I was like, it's less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
This movie
on
clocks
the cusp, like
an hour and 59 minutes.
Some
and a
shit.
handful
Yeah,
of change.
I know. So fucked up.
Sure.
I'm like, oh yay, because like an hour and 30 minutes, we can sit through those, and those are usually like palatable. Like you can handle it. And then even if it's bad, like there's always something that you can just be like, it's an hour and a half. But when you're crossing into that 2 hour territory, it better have some really good character development and some really good scenes that are really drawing you in. And this movie, for me personally, doesn't do a damn thing like that. Like,
no, there's very little character development.
There is jack shit. Like there's not. And it's also feels kind of repetitive. So
I wonder though, if a lot of that kind of stuff is on purpose to kind of go with the themes of the movie, of like with its length and stuff like that, of wearing you down and stuff. I'm wondering if, like, because of like the sound design and all. Well, no, but like I don't think it's spoilery or anything, but just like the idea of isolation and stuff like that.
And like how oppressive that isolation can become. Is that?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that has something to do with like the length of it, because there's a lot of long shots. There's a lot of stuff that like watching someone just kind of work on a computer that seems really long and everything. And I'm wondering if it's supposed to be the mundanity of existence. So watching this wears you down. Like, I know that doesn't come to like, this is an amazing, entertaining movie, but as an art piece coming at it, where it's like, this is not a ringing endorsement. I don't feel this, but if the movie is boring you to death, that kind of fits the fucking like thing that they're doing in this movie and the lines that they're drawing. I wonder if that's intentional.
Well, the acting in this movie is like that too, though, because that's probably intentional as well, because either they're underacting, like all the scenes are just very like this and we're all one tone most of the time, or we're like top fucking notch, like crazy town, which I understand that's you see that in like Japanese anime and things like that, but like we're watching like this is early 2000s, so I don't know if this is maybe in that same time frame that's like normal, or if that's something that they just technically do, because I haven't seen a lot of Japanese films. I mean, I know martial arts films are kind of like that, but they're usually just high energy the whole time. But yeah, it just feels very much like there's no middle ground. It's like we are just living, and then there's like no, we're not, and then we just are. So
well, like reading up and stuff on it, like it gets a lot of like rave reviews for like its dreaminess, and I wonder if that's like it doesn't feel like reality and stuff, and I'm wondering if that kind of comes in, because I can draw a conclusion, like if that's on purpose and stuff, you can draw a conclusion, or not a conclusion, but a line to like oh my god, why am I forgetting his name? Twin Peaks and all that stuff. Give me 1 second. His name is, I have a shirt with that motherfucker's face on it, and I am losing all of the fucking credibility. Like for days, somebody's going to be like, Nick, you need to stop this.
Talking about David Lynch.
Yes, David Lynch. Jesus Christ.
Natasha wins.
Yeah, but like, hey, I'm not cutting that out either. Like, people are just going to be like, he's a fucking idiot.
Now you know what we live in.
You even have his face on a shirt. Jeez.
Yeah,
I know. David Lynch, though, has like this very dreamy quality to a lot of his stuff that it just doesn't make sense and everything. And I know Japanese films, especially horror films, are heavily influenced by that, what's referred to as like Lynchian filmmaking, where it's got a lot of that stuff, to the point where like the video game series Silent Hill is taking Lynch's horror stuff and putting a Japanese spin on it specifically to make it for the American audience. So that's why there's like that weird dreamy disconnect. So I'm wondering if that's kind of where like that acting like is just like, what the fuck is going on? Why is it so disjointed? Why is it like this? And that's where it's like, are we missing something in that?
Yeah, maybe that makes sense.
And that doesn't mean that it will change your opinion on it, because if it wasn't entertaining to you, it wasn't entertaining to you. But were these decisions made on purpose and stuff like that? And that's where I think so, considering seeing other people's like reviews of this, being here and having, this is the first time that any of us have watched this. So this was my first take into it as well. Seeing all that kind of stuff, I was like, okay, I think I went into this expecting one thing and got a different thing, and like kind of rerunning it through my head, just like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense if we look at it through this lens, and this makes sense if we look at it through that lens. I was just looking at it through the wrong pair of glasses,
and I really had nothing to go off of with this. So then I was kind of sitting there the majority of the movie just trying to figure out what was happening, and it would take me like 20 minutes to figure out a scene that happened previously, to figure out like to get all of the components to realize what's going on. And it did feel very disjointed. But then I always go back to, since I don't fully pay attention a lot of the times, I go back to thinking imagine. It was so rough because, you know, like we're reading it, so I can't do anything else while watching the movie. Sometimes, you know, I might get on my phone and like, or like twiddle around while I'm watching it to like keep my focus at least on the dialogue. But with this, because I had to physically keep my eyes on the screen the whole time to read what was going on, I started to kind of fade out a lot of times because there would be such minimal dialogue for such a long scene that I'd start to space out and then think I missed something when something did happen. But in reality, there was really no like linear jump to what happened. Like Steph said, it would be like monotony, and then all the way up here to a 10, I would think that it built up to that 10. In reality, it just jumped, and some character just like had a thought and away we go. So that was very difficult for me. But I wish I had more to go off of as far as Japanese culture and Japanese cinema, because I feel like I'm going to do a disservice to like rating this movie because I don't get any of those nuances. I get it was confusing and boring.
No, but
that's
like
true. That's fair though.
It's very fair because, like, you know, for instance, like this podcast, we all have 3 different histories and influences through everything. So someone that is a really big J-horror fan will not like your guys' opinions,
right,
but they might like mine. But then somebody that is new to this like genre and everything,
This probably won't be the movie for them.
Did the homework just for the podcast and everything, watch this, and we're just like, I fucking hated this.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, you guys are right, and they're going to hear everything that I'm saying, and they're just like, nope, you're putting way too much thought into this. It was 2 hours that I can't get back.
I don't think you're putting too much thought into it. I think that you're trying to connect the dots as to why it makes sense, and
right,
and in taking into an entire culture's perspective on why it makes sense to them. And I think that there's something to be said about that. Does that make this movie to me any more enjoyable? No. I can appreciate the creation of art in any facet, but that doesn't mean that I like it. So I can appreciate them putting the effort into it. I don't think it was a poorly made film in the sense that like it was some crappy budget that they just slapped together. And obviously it's not, because it has really good ratings for the people who enjoy it. But it's just, it just doesn't resonate for me. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's a different culture. It just has to do with what's on the screen and how much I related to it and how much I pulled from it. And I can pull some pretty deep shit from some deep shit. And it just didn't do that. Like we were talking about this the other day, and I was like, this movie, the way that it's played out and like the slice of life feel to it feels a lot like watching The Exorcist, because not in the sense of like it's a, they're not being possessed or anything like that. But there's those moments that are really high and they're very high tension. And then everything else in between is just watching people live their lives. And it's slow, and it's just, and you're just watching the screen waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't. And that's exactly what happens in The Exorcist. That's why I hate that movie, and I don't like it. I would never recommend it. And I understand where this is coming from, because that was an American film. This is not. It still has that same pacing, I guess, to me. And like, that's why I just don't. And I still think some of the scenes in The Exorcist were better than the scenes in this movie too. But the high highs, because they were just very crazy and inventive. And this was, not supposed to be like that. So, yeah.
So, Tasha, do you want to give us an overview of, like, now that we've been talking for a while?
Forever.
Like, what exactly Pulse is?
It is a 2001 Japanese techno horror film directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. The plot centers on ghosts invading the world of the living via the internet. After one of their friends commits suicide, strange things begin happening to a group of young Tokyo residents. One of them sees visions of his dead friend in the shadows on the wall, while another's computer keeps showing strange, ghostly images. Is their friend trying to contact them from beyond the grave, or is there something much more sinister going on?
And that kind of made me want to see this. I was like, that's something I've not seen in the sense of ghosts from the internet. As corny as that can sound, I think that they did a really neat, they did an interesting way of doing it. But yeah, we'll get into all that after.
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I had a really hard time actually coming up with the budget for this film, because everywhere that I found, they wanted to smack the American budget on this because of, in 2006, there was an American remake starring Kristen Bell, which I was pretty shocked about. But all of these movies, The Ring, Ju-on, Pulse remake, all that stuff, they always had this strong female lead, like that. Was it Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think, is the lead in The Grudge, and I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, but the lead in The Ring is a pretty well Naomi Watts is the lead in that. So they went after star power for the leads in those, and Tasha and I I don't know if you think this or not, Steph. I know Tasha does, and I believe this. I don't want big stars in my horror films for the most part because I already know who they are and I have a preconceived notion.
Right.
I don't care either way. I think there's an ability to have a draw if you're watching a horror movie that has people like Matthew Lillard. If he's in a horror movie, I want to watch it just for the sake of watching Matthew Lillard. But if you're watching it and you're just going into it blind and you're like, I want to just submerge myself in the storyline, sometimes having a character that is played by an actor is really well known kind of does that to you, because then you're thinking about perfect example was when we watched 1408 and Samuel L. Jackson's in that movie, and every time I think of Samuel L. Jackson I think of Nick Fury. So that's kind of where my brain goes, and then I have to come back down to earth and be like, nah, he's an actor, you dumbass. So he's not Nick Fury.
He's a concierge right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that movie was pre him being that, I believe. Yeah. So yeah, you just kind of have to bring yourself back to reality. But yeah, I do think that people who are just strictly horror actors, I think is fine. Because I think if you're watching, say that all they do is really act in horror movies and then they play in 50 of them, you already know kind of what you're going to experience with them because they're horror actors. So I think that would probably be a little bit different of experience than having a really big blockbuster budget guy that's, plays a completely different actor in a different movie. So
not having the budget, I'm going to base the budget a little bit on its contemporaries and stuff like that. So like I said, it wanted to say that this movie was its $25 million American remake.
Yeah, no.
Everywhere I looked, it was saying that. I was like, there's no way.
There's no way.
I found its box office, which its box office makes sense and everything. Because this is a cult classic. This film wasn't it didn't come out and everybody was amazing. There's a lot of stuff even that's I believe what Inverse.com has an article about it that says this forgotten Japanese horror movie is the scariest thing to watch in 2020. Which, I mean, considering what this movie's about, I could only imagine watching this during the pandemic.
Dude,
that's true. Yeah, that's true. It would really, that's probably when it was most popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee.
Just like how Contagion was super popular.
Yeah.
All of those terrifying apocalyptic things.
Yeah, 12 Monkeys probably. All those movies that you just go, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
So The Ring's budget was 1.2 million. Or Ringu, the original Ring.
Okay. This is probably in the same.
We can probably surmise, and that came out 3 years prior to this, so we can surmise that this was probably made in the vicinity of $1 million.
Yeah, between 1 and 2, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think it ended up raking in worldwide? Its box office.
Oh. Well, you said it became a cult classic, so
correct.
So that means that it didn't do shit in the box office. Yeah, that's so fucked up, but it's true. I'm gonna go with $1 million. I'm gonna say this movie was just maybe 1.5.
What do you got?
2.5.
318,000.
Oh yeah,
$451.
Yeah, nobody liked this movie when it came out. Well, okay, so this movie came. Okay, when did this come out? Give me a specific time frame.
2001 in Japan.
Okay, but what month?
Oh, I have no fucking.
I feel like that might not necessarily matter, or have the same conversion. We want Halloween movies to come out in October.
No, I'm talking because in 2001, depending on when this came out, that was 9/11 and the world was all fucked up. Because I understand that they're not American, so this didn't happen to them. But if people are dealing with all the bullshit, everybody gets touched by really bad shit that happens. We have stuff going on in the Middle East right now, and we are experiencing our own stuff because of it. Not anything compared to them, obviously, in any capacity. But I wonder if that has some play into, world stuff.
Its original distribution it was first released in Japan on February 3rd, 2001.
Okay, so then it doesn't count then. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was
It didn't come out in the United States though for 4 more years.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't get a release, it seems, in the States and stuff until the American remake came out, and then it came out because it's hey, here's what it's based on and stuff like that. So kind of taking that into consideration,
That makes sense then.
Yeah, and we're gonna see that with these films for the most part for February and stuff is like not having an American release and stuff really can change like how much money you're making on the back end and stuff like that, because our culture is so built around celebrity and going and seeing movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, this podcast is literally just built around watching movies.
Yeah.
So, but so in 2001, we actually are doing almost back to back. Was our last episode 13 Ghosts?
Oh yeah.
No, our last movie was X.
Oh, X. Okay, so skip back over X and go to 13 Ghosts. These came out in the same year.
But then watch X.
yes. Don't forget to watch.
Don't forget to
watch X.
And then listen to us talk about it. Don't completely skip over
absolutely.
it.
No.
Don't skip that.
No, that's the movie you should be watching out of all of these.
This came out the same year though as like 13 Ghosts for 2001 in horror, which we talked about in that episode. I'll go over it real quick. I have a different list than I had last time. Last time I said The Others was the top horror film for that year. It was actually the second top horror film for 2001 because the movie Hannibal came out that year.
Oh, that was actually pretty good.
Made a stupid amount of money.
Not shocking.
No.
It made $165 million.
Damn, for a horror movie, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost doubled what second place was.
Damn.
So it ran away with it for that year.
Yeah, but that movie was good. So, and yeah.
But yeah, so like that, I only have like American box office, like it's mostly American films just because of distribution and stuff like that and all that. But yeah, so this came out basically in the States during the American J horror boom. So that's when you started getting, The Eye, The Ring, all that stuff.
Okay.
And I was not a fan of the American remakes, but I liked the ideas. Like my introduction to J horror was The Grudge. I actually saw The Ring after I saw The Grudge, and then just kind of went and checked out. There's like, I was very young, like we don't have a big scope in front of us of understanding that there are different cultures unless you are witness to those cultures. And we grew up in cornfields in Ohio. So,
and our movie places that you could rent didn't have anything like that, really.
Correct. Like I don't remember really seeing any foreign films outside of like martial arts films and stuff like that through my grandmother. Because like even then she was a big horror fan, but like it was like just what came through Suncoast Video and all that stuff. But so it'll be interesting to see what we all have to say after the spoilers. But I do have one question before we get into spoiler territory. Okay. And that is did you guys find anything new this week that you kind of want to champion to anybody?
Champion
Fargo season 5.
Oh yeah, you said
I haven't watched anything else regarding Fargo, but I really like Juno Temple. If you've watched Ted Lasso, she's in it. John Hamm's in it. So yeah, I'm into the second season or the second episode, but it has this like dark comedy humor to it that I really appreciate. It's, I guess, kind of horror adjacent if you wanted to keep it in that realm, but I'm going into it knowing nothing about the Fargo universe. Like I said, didn't see the movie, and so far I really like it. So
there you go. Nice.
I know mine, but I know what Nick wants to talk about, so we're going to give him the floor so he can spew his excitement, because I already know what he's going to discuss.
Well, I've got two things.
Okay, spew his excitement.
He is. He's been going on about this all week.
Now, I guess I'll talk about the one that Steph is alluding to.
Yeah, he's talked about this every single freaking day, all week long.
Okay,
it's the greatest season of television that's ever been made.
Oh, how did I not know this?
I know. Come on.
So
Tosh.
I know. Oh, I know.
I finally finished. I'd been putting it off forever. I watched the first few episodes of it, and then this past week or so, I finally sat down, rewatched from beginning to end the first season of True Detective that came out on HBO back in 2014 with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. It is a crime drama with a supernatural twist on it. Like I said, it's from HBO and stuff. It's 8 episodes, so it's about 8 hours. And it is, to me, some of the most riveting, engrossing television that I've ever watched.
Dang.
That being said, I'm not a huge TV person. Love movies.
Yeah, not at all. So this is high praise.
Yeah.
But TV for me is like, I get bored quick. And this was fucking phenomenal. I know I'm kind of late to the party. Like I said, this is 10 years old at this point. What basically made me watch it is the 4th season just started recently, like the last month or so. And I was like, I might want to check that out, but I feel that I need to finish what I started. So I finished the 1st season. I started up a little bit. It's an anthology series. So each season is its own standalone story, and cops and they're detectives and whatnot. I started the 2nd season, wasn't too keen on it. I'm not here to waste time, so I jumped to the 3rd season. I'm almost done with the 3rd season. It fucking rules. But the 1st season's amazing. So definitely, if you got some time, don't watch it around the kiddos, because it's very graphic when it wants to be graphic. There's a lot of nudity and stuff in it, stuff like that, but it's fucking phenomenal. So definitely check that out. And then second thing I want to drop is the band Knoll, Knoll, dropped their 3rd album. It's called As Spoken. It is possibly, in the last handful of years, probably the darkest album I've heard in a long time. If you like your movies dark and spooky and oppressively, like, just concussive around you and everything, and just very intense, definitely check it out. It's for fans of people that like the bands like Full of Hell or Portal, which both those bands I really like. This is basically just the most evil, but not like Satan evil, like literally, like it sounds like a choir of, it's like a choir of demons made this album. Like,
choir of demons. Okay, that's high praise too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Steph, we actually got to see this band last year, and Steph loved it.
Oh,
so
I sat at the bar and watched the guys lose their shit.
but yeah, that's my other one. Knoll, As Spoken. You can find it on all the streaming services, and they are very, very important to me. They are independent completely. They do not have a record label and everything. They do it's very DIY. They do their own thing. So they're going to be touring the US. They've got a European tour coming up and everything. So definitely go check them if they're in your town. But
that's awesome. Okay. And so mine is an oldie but a goodie, I guess. I'm rewatching a series that I forgot how much I love this show. So I couldn't find anything to watch. I finished season 1 of Reacher, and I was like, do I want to carry on to season 2? I wasn't sure yet. So I probably will at some point, but I decided, hey, what's something good? Well, Prime has it on their stuff now. So Bitten is and this fits with our horror podcast, is a werewolf show. It's based off a book series by Kelly Armstrong. I have not read the book series, but I do know about it. And it's a romance, but it's also got a lot of gore, and it's literally just about a werewolf pack and them dealing with mutts, which are people who do not run in packs, basically, and having to police them, and them causing a bunch of havoc. So it's so good. It's so good. And it's very dramatic, and it does have a really hard line of romance in it. So I think, I obviously like that. It feels kind of like a smaller, not as in-depth version of like the Vampire Diaries, but werewolf form in its own ways. So I really love it. And I rewatched the 1st season. I was like, now I remember why. And I will probably watch season 2. Season 3 is not as good, but I think it's only 3 seasons. But yeah, that would be my week thing. I wasn't feeling well, so it was like, let's lay on the couch and watch some TV. So that's what I did.
Maybe the werewolves will kiss my tum-tum and make me feel better.
I mean, if Clayton Danvers wants to come visit, he can come visit anytime.
Is he trailer trash? I know you're into trailer trash.
No, he's a professor. So
does he have tentacles?
No, he's a werewolf. But he was bitten as a werewolf. He wasn't born a werewolf. So that's kind of
He
different.
was born an octopus.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And tonight I have my first book club at my house. So yay.
Yeah.
We finished I finished the book the Blackbird and Butcher and Blackbird book, that everybody's going on about, which is the one I was talking about last podcast, which is about serial killers falling in love. And I did not love the book, but it'll be really fun just to hang out and talk about why we all loved or did not love the book, and nobody will ever look at cookies and cream ice cream the same ever again. So
All right. So this is a movie club. So if you have watched Pulse, stick around. We're going to give our actual, real deal high fives, low fives, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah. I think we're gonna kind of cover that a little bit, but we'll get more.
We're gonna really go what it was like in scenes and stuff like that. We're not gonna hold anything back.
I don't think this movie has scenes. It's just one long ass slow scene.
Shut up and let me get through this.
Just get fucking through it, Nick. Come on. This is a movie club, is what he's going to tell you. Go ahead.
I've been telling you that, but you won't shut the fuck up.
To tell you.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Anyway, this is movie club. The last 10 minutes or so is what. Shut the fuck. Oh my god.
Just go.
Are you good?
Roll with it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The last 10 minutes or so of the episode, we give out homework for next week. So if you still want to watch Pulse and are interested in it and you just haven't had the time and stuff, skip to the last 10 minutes, check it out there. Pulse is viewable on Peacock. That's how we watched it.
Yeah.
It's in its original Japanese form with English subtitles and stuff like that, which is, in my opinion, the preferred way to watch any foreign film, because then you actually get the true performance of the actors. Whether you like their performances or not, you're getting what is intended on the screen. You're not getting authentic. Well, hello there, I am Jimmy. You're not getting that. So,
and their mouths don't match.
Yeah. But so we're going to throw up that spoiler warning, and then we are going to talk about 2001's Pulse.
So if you want to be a part of our club, you can find us at facebook.com/podofthedead, or else on Instagram at pod_of_the_dead, or on TikTok at podofthedead. If you want to email us any questions, any complaints, or movie recommendations, you can email us at podofthedead666@gmail.com.
All right, let's see here. Let's get the 10 out of 10 out of the way, I suppose, for our reviews that we found online.
Okay.
Yay. Go for it, Tasha.
10 out of 10. So I probably am going to be more on board with this review.
Yeah,
I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, but
I'm excited.
I mean, they also said some things that I also agree with. So this is a very long one. Okay, so here we go. Sorry for the hyperbole topic, but I mean it. I'm a horror movie fanatic, and I have become desensitized to cheap scares with loud noises and murderers running around with axes. I am very picky and only like one out of every few dozen horror movies I watch. Did Nick write this?
No shit.
I'm very like that because I like what I like, goddammit.
I also don't like nonsensical horror that uses creepy images as a gimmick without actually bothering to make any sense. So when I say that this is the creepiest horror movie ever made, it is not hyperbole. That's
it might not be hyperbole, but it is definitely a gross overstatement.
But not for them. This is their opinion.
I know.
Right. That said, this movie will bore or confound the average horror movie watcher. That's the part I agree with.
Yeah.
Also, this part. It's not linear or logical, and it doesn't explain everything that is going on, but it doesn't have to. I disagree with that. I would like to know an idea of what's happening. This is an apocalyptic horror movie about loneliness and how people may become distant islands and ghosts even though they are connecting through technology like cell phones and the internet. I don't know how anyone can make a horror movie about loneliness and make it creepy as hell, but Kiyoshi Kurosawa pulled it off. That's all you need to know. Experience it with the lights off, no breaks, noise, or distractions. Dude, I tried that and I was asleep in literally a half an hour.
Yeah, but you're narcoleptic.
Like all of this in here is just grounds for me taking a nap.
Yeah.
So do all of that, or I will lock you in a room with a depressed ghost and tape the door shut with red tape until you become so lonely you will evaporate into nothing.
Hell yeah. I like that review.
Yeah.
Like that's
It's very well written.
Yeah, and I think
I
that
agree with what
they explained the movie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they kind of touched on it a little bit there, and on the overview of the episode is there's a lot of imagery in this that's not blatant imagery that will stick with me forever. The red tape doors, and the black smudges on the wall.
Yeah, those are very symbolistic. Yeah,
for me,
good.
that's so memorable for this film.
Yeah, it fits really well with the film for what it's trying to accomplish, I think.
Yeah,
that's actually probably the better parts.
I never go into the movies that we're watching. I always go into them blind. I don't want to know what's going on. But for this one, I wish I would have read a review, not necessarily a review, but a deeper synopsis. So then I could have at least bare bones understood what was going on.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because this is, I would say, definitely when it comes to, I don't have the list of the films that we've watched, but I definitely would say that this is the most, I don't want to say confusing, but it's like very, oh God, I don't even know the words to use. It's like when I was saying like dreamy and stuff like that. This is definitely like the most, the least, not the most, the least a movie has explained what is going on.
Except for in the library. That was the only time in the whole movie that there's actually like a guy that comes out and basically spells it out for you what's going on, because people up to this point, which is like halfway through the movie when this guy comes into the show, and it's basically like, well, this is what's actually happening. And then that's where you actually understand what's going down. Because up until that point, you're like, what the fuck? And so he's sharing with us. Even then, that's his thought of what's happening.
Right.
Yeah. But it's still sharing with us what the reality is. I feel like, and now that I'm like reflecting on this movie a little bit before I read my 1-star review, I feel like it's like an art piece in a sense that you have to go into and then interpret however works for you. And it's really slow in that way. And it's not hand feeding you.
I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at with like, this is for all the movies that we have watched.
Yeah.
This is the movie that is most that it is not given to you on a platter. You have to think about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Which most of the other films that we have watched, like I said, nothing comes to mind that is anywhere near.
No, but I think like The Witch does have some of that in it because it's a lot quieter of a film and it's just visual. And this is kind of the same way. I just think they do better in explaining with the visuals in that, and they don't
But that one still is very linear and very like cohesive. Where this one is so scattered, where like you're not even 100% sure that like people are alive or not during half of this movie and stuff like that.
It's very interpretive.
So
it's definitely like that. It's it's okay. So we're gonna get to 1-star.
Yeah, let's hear this 1 out of 10.
Absolutely horrendous. The plot didn't make any sense whatsoever. Are you on par with this, Tasha?
Yes.
I thought this would be a good thing to watch based on the trailer, so I decided to watch it with my friend. However, we were both majorly bored and let down. This movie had me almost falling asleep. The trailer only cut out the bits that seemed at all interesting with some spooky music over the top of it to make it seem good. So the trailer apparently was like making this appealing. Scenes were too long when they didn't need to be. There was no jump scares at all, and we were both confused throughout the entire movie. I wouldn't even bother watching this terrible excuse of a horror thriller movie. It's just 118 minutes of pure emptiness.
But that's really showing of like what the movie though is about.
Right? Yeah, that could be the tagline.
Yeah, that's true.
Their 1 out of 10 review is so on point though with that.
Yeah, literally. It's pure emptiness. It literally is. It's pure
they
emptiness.
got the premise. They just didn't like it.
Yeah, that's kind of how we
more
are.
than
At
me.
least I am. Yeah. The plot was terrible. There were so many things that didn't even make sense or even get explained. It was so jump cutty that I understand that they did that because the name is Pulse, so it would have to stop and start kind of thing. But this was just a poor way of representing it.
Would you say that this movie has much of a plot at all in general?
The plot is the desolation and the loneliness. That's literally all.
Right. It's like a conceptual plot. It's not like a spelled out plot.
Correct.
It's a concept.
Yeah, there's no point A to point B. It is just this is happening and they are existing in it.
And the world is slowly like becoming less and less around them. So like there's less people and like it becomes more like you have lots of people in the beginning and then it starts being less and less as the time goes on. So it's kind of peeling the layers back and taking the people out of the picture. But then at some point, to me personally, especially towards the end, it was like, are we already in this other realm? Because the movie talks about how the ghost realm gets so full that then it has to press into reality, which I don't like that premise. I think it's dumb. But
I liked it.
I didn't like that premise. I think it makes no sense to me, but I get like that's the rules of this, right? So they're pressing into our world and bringing in their sadness and their their depression basically is what it comes across, these ghosts that are lonely. And that's what my takeaway was. But part of me towards the end was like, are they already over in some other place? And they're, because there is nothing. Like it's very like, I don't know, it's just a very weird experience to watch. And like the beginning of the movie is the end of the movie. So you get to see like the whole storyline play. So I don't know.
I didn't catch that.
I just like the movie is almost like a 2-hour painting of spiraling into depression.
Kind of.
Because everything, like, it doesn't matter if you want other people to be there and stuff. It's that they're just every connection you have is disappearing and you are eventually just left to your own devices and to yourself. And the main male protagonist that's in this is so hard up for trying to keep someone with him, and everyone just keeps disappearing and going away and stuff on him. And I think that's where this movie kind of hits for me, is just that isolation, but not like, it's not scary because of the isolation. It's the scariness of or the fear of being alone, like
forever,
fully alone, even when you die.
Yeah, that
the other side is just more of that, and that is horrifying. Like that right there is like, at least if you go to hell or to heaven, there's something, but to literally just be left alone for all eternity in a cycle and stuff, the idea of that is where I think like when you've got like Takashi Miike saying that this frightened him, I think it's because it makes you reflect on your mortality and stuff like that, and that idea is very frightening.
That's true. Okay, so the rest of this review,
we're not done
here. Sorry guys.
We were done.
I'm sorry.
No, I got 3 more paragraphs here. Jesus. They're not very long. No. So I'll finish it. I'll reread the last couple sentences I just read. So is jump cutty, and I understand that they did it caused the name to Pulse, so it would have stop and start kind of thing, and that was just poor way of representing it. The sounds were also boring. They kept on playing this static computer glitch sound, which you can easily find on YouTube, and repeated it numerous times throughout the movie. I would have hoped this was like The Shining kind of level, but putting this movie in the same category as The Shining is just offensive to even think that thought. I highly would not recommend this movie. It really is not worth it, especially if you're a horror and thriller fanatic like me. How is this a thriller?
And how is this like The Shining? Aside from like the ghosts in the bar. Yeah.
What the fuck? That is like,
I don't know.
Because like the desolation.
I have to draw that line.
Like, it says the category as The Shining. I don't know. And the sounds were the least boring part of this, in my opinion.
And the fact that you can find a dial-up computer tone on the internet means nothing. Like,
no, I wonder how old this person is. Maybe they didn't live.
They didn't know that it
times.
existed.
Yeah.
It was an actual thing.
Yeah.
On top of that, they're talking about like the sound design's fucking horrible. That's one of my favorite things in this movie.
It is. That's actually the best
white noise.
Yeah.
Because that noise is so anxiety inducing for some people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of it, like when they were actually dialing up, was kind of comical in a sense because like we lived with that in the 90s and the early 2000s. But
it threw me back to waiting 5 minutes to see boobs.
Yeah. Well, when they put the disc out, this was hilarious. They pulled the disc out to get on the internet, and Nick's like, "Oh my God, I forgot. This is like that time frame. We had to put discs in to use the internet." And I was like, "Yeah." And then it was like the whole dial-up thing, and I was like, "I do not miss those days."
No.
Yeah, I would say that this movie, overall, it was a hot mess for me. But the parts that worked. Like I agree with Nick when he was talking about like the ghosty things on the walls, like the smudges. I feel like that was really good. Like the computer screens didn't do anything for me, and like a lot of it, I just didn't know what to expect. And yes, the red tape on the doors did. But then when we went and I Googled it, and I was like, maybe this is like something in Japan, like a culture thing, like red tape has something to do with their culture. And from what I've looked, now I could be wrong, but from what I looked, it's just connected to this movie specifically. So it was just bringing up information about this movie and having red tape on the doors. So I was like, maybe because like in other cultures, like they paint blood around door frames for like to keep protection. The bad out. Yeah, exactly. So it could be the same thing, but with tape instead of blood. You know, the thing was like the blood of a goat or something is what it was back in the day. So yeah, I don't know. It was a movie, and it had smudges, and yeah. So
like for me, I am. Let's see here. What's the way to put this? I like I said, I like atmospheric stuff. I like things not being explained to me and stuff like that. So the fact that it's more just the mood of not understanding what's going on because they don't. So as a viewer, I'm not going to understand it either. I'm okay with that. So they're just trying to grasp at straws to find out why their friends are disappearing, all this stuff. They're finding these smudges on the walls. There are some fucking scenes in this movie to me that are insanely heartbreaking and terrifying. The two that come to mind is, I believe it's Junko is the girl that she ends up seeing a ghost. Her friend Michi is like taking care of her and everything at her apartment, and she ends up falling asleep, and Junko is standing in front of a sliding glass door that's open, and they're like on a higher story of this apartment complex. And she's like, "Oh, sorry, I fell asleep," you know, all this stuff. And Junko's just staring out, the wind's blowing in her hair and everything. She's very despondent. And Michi gets up to do something, and Junko kind of walks off to the left a little bit and goes behind Michi, like in frame and everything. And when Michi turns around, it's just a black smudge on the wall because she's seeing her ghost stand there in front of the window. But while she was asleep, she had already jumped out the window and died. So that kind of stuff, that people are just killing themselves because of the depression, of the isolation and stuff like that. And that, like, I was watching it and I was like, oh no, she's going to jump.
Yeah,
she's
that's what I thought too.
She started walking to the side. I was like, oh my God, I think she's already jumped.
Yeah, a lot of that was in this movie.
Shows that smudge. I was like, that's so, like, the way that was done, it subverted what it was setting up. Like, it's just like, you're expecting this scene of seeing someone jump. Another time that I thought it was really effective, I can't remember which characters it was. It might have been Michi again, but I can't remember. But she goes in to like a storage room, and there's her guy for
it's her boss, I think.
Her boss.
Yeah.
She goes in there to talk to him. She sees him, turns around. It's just the smudge on the wall, and it just keeps saying, "Help, help me."
Yeah, that was the best part of the whole movie, in my opinion.
That's so
it was
fucking
creepy.
terrifying. That like the ghosts in this are not like trying to get you and stuff like that. They're literally calling out for help.
The ghosts in the movie were the best part. Anytime that there was that scene, that was what kept me interested. And then it was strung together with a lot of nothing. But I mean, I guess that makes sense. My question is, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick. The third, there's 4 scenes that come to mind. The third scene that comes to mind then is when Haru is sitting at the computer and she's watching this guy with a bag on his head, and he pulls the bag off of his head and he shoots himself in the head.
Yeah.
And then the computer kind of glitches, and it instantly is like if a camera is behind her watching her, and you're getting the view of a ghost that is in the other room watching her. That was probably, to me, the scariest scene in the movie, because I was just like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, the idea of being watched is always something with like anxiety and stuff that I've got, is always a fucking constant terror of like someone just watching me and I don't know. And then the other one is another one, I believe, with Michi, where she's out on the phone and there's a big silo behind her. It's shot in this way that the silo is just in the background over her shoulder, and then you kind of notice a form up top that's moving, and she doesn't even watch it happen. You just watch this fucking person jump off the silo and fall and smack into the ground. She turns around, sees it happen as it hits, and then it becomes a smudge, and all of that kind of stuff is just, I thought the atmosphere of depression and isolation and stuff, like, I really liked.
And that was really well done, I think, because there was no sound involved with that too. It was as if you were watching it in real life, like as if you were watching it as a video or whatever. And that was really chilling. That was the scariest part for me. That and the initial time that you see the image in the computer screen at the beginning. But what I was going to say is, my question, when it revolves around the ghosts and the smudges, at some point they cut to and you see the image of the ghost, and then at some points it's the smudge. Now I'm wondering what are your thoughts, or is there any context that I just missed about when it is an image versus the smudge? Is the smudge always there and then certain people are seeing the image, or is it right after they commit suicide, they're there for whatever reason in this location, not necessarily where they died, and then they dissipate?
I have no idea.
I think it's that's always the smudge, and then the ghost that they're seeing is when it wants to show itself, as it were. But I think of the smudge as almost like a grave marker, in the sense of like, this is where something happened.
I would agree with that. But the ghost component of it, I don't understand.
And then that makes
what was that?
Sorry.
That confuses me then when you go back to Junko and Michi, where I was wondering if she had jumped. But since it was kind of something that you just had to take into, like, you just kind of formed that thought, that was confusing to me of, okay, where did she die? How did she die? Because if she did jump, like it's alluding to, why would her smudge and why would her ghost be in the room?
And maybe she didn't, because I think later on when we see Haru kill herself and stuff, there's just a smudge laying on the ground, but her body's gone. Yeah. So that's where like that dream logic comes in, where it's more the idea of what you're looking at, not that it is to be made sense of. It's more the symbolism, I believe,
of being gone
for me.
Yeah, it kind of does remove you from that reality, because somebody does die there. They don't do anything with the body, and then the body just randomly disappears. So like there is a piece of that.
And then I'll give the movie gets some of the worst scoring from me when the smudges decide to disappear into like ash.
Right.
It is some of the worst CG I've ever seen, period, end discussion. Right. They could have just not done that, just flat out.
Because I'm trying to figure out like the rules to this. So they see something on a screen, or they see a ghost, or they go into one of these red taped rooms, then they're embodied with the, like, is something like changing their like like their thought processes? Are they depressed because they saw a ghost? Like, what is imparting in them to then they are slowly declining? If there's something about like this like predatory ghost and these predatory rooms.
The only thing that makes sense to me is I believe it's Haru talks about what is the difference between being alive and dead when these people are just online. They're not because like this is definitely like when that article was talking about for 2020, like how horrifying this would be. You're getting no human interaction with anybody.
Yeah.
So when you are completely isolated, when you are completely alone, how is that any different than being a ghost? So what I see it as is that these people are being confronted with the afterlife, with these ghosts. They are already predisposed to being isolated, extremely sad, lonely, and they are basically coming to the conclusion of what's the difference? Why shouldn't I kill myself?
Oh, okay.
There's no difference in the afterlife. That's how I kind of read it.
I agree.
Which is not a fucking not a happy thing
No.
at all, because there's no reason you would kill yourself knowing if everything at the other side is isolation. But if you're already isolated and stuff, it's like, what's the fucking point of
it
even
could also
trying?
be what's the purpose of life? Like, okay,
Yeah.
so I live my life and I go through all of this stuff and I'm dealing whatever they're dealing with, because they don't really allude to a lot of that. And then they're like, what does it matter? So I'm just going to end it now. Like I'm going to be living the same thing anyway, over and
I'm
over
going to die
again.
eventually anyway. So
Correct.
what's the point of putting it off?
Yeah.
Which is so fucking depressing.
Yeah, but the thing is like that concept, right? Again, just going to reiterate this, sounds cool just to watch in a movie. The problem is all the other shit that's in this movie.
Yeah. All the watching, who is it? Kawashimi, boot up his computer and click through windows.
Yeah, or like going in that room going to the college and just being in that room just fucking around, or like it's just the scenes that were, say they were 5-minute long scenes, right? Which they're probably longer than that realistically, but if they were 5-minute long scenes, they should have been half that length. Like the majority of all the scenes should have been cut to that degree because of how just monotonous they were rolling. And again, we had talked about this, like that's probably the purpose of this movie. Like it's supposed to be slow. It's supposed to,
It
basically
makes you want to die.
Yeah, I mean, not literally, but yeah, it like pulls you down and it basically saps the energy out of you, right? So maybe that is the purpose of it, but I don't like that. Like it's not for me.
That's correct. That's the biggest thing. Like this is not a movie. Like I sound so elitist and fucking nose up when I say this kind of stuff, but I do mean it. This is a movie that makes a lot of sense in this sense, where this is not to be watched as entertainment.
Right.
This is to be watched to appreciate and to criticize and to dissect.
Yeah, we watch a lot of movies like that, I think, and like this one is just heavier handed.
Yeah. It's the difference between somebody liking Frank Sinatra or somebody liking, Noel. They're both music, but people have a different appreciation for different things, and if that's not your taste, that's not your taste.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Is like, no movie is made for everybody.
Agreed.
Because those movies to me are the boring ones. Like your Disneyfication of everything. It's like, let's check all the boxes to try to get everybody in. And I've said this before. I believe I said it on a Gaiden episode, where when you try to appease everybody, you appease nobody, because you're half-assing so many different things that like you're not giving anything a full focus. So this film is full focus for one specific thing.
True.
If you're not into that, you're not gonna fucking like it.
True.
It
definitely has. Go ahead, Tasha.
Can we talk about the dots on the computer screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
So
but I don't get it.
The only thing that I can think about with this is, are they supposed to be the souls trapped in the computer?
So when Haru is talking about it, she says that it's a simulation that kind of it's not real, but it's simulating people and how they interact with things. So if they become too close, they both destroy themselves. But if they go too far apart, they'll pull each other closer because they don't want to be isolated.
Right.
So it's supposed to be the simulation there. Well, then this is where the internet aspect of it comes in. So then some of them start blipping in and out, and they don't understand why they're blipping in and out. And I think that that's supposed to basically be the signifier, as that's like a gateway of how I don't understand by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not even going to try to say that I do, why the internet is helping ghosts through.
Well, they talked about that briefly later on.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there was, I don't know if it was like a flashback or what, but somebody was talking about the Red Room, like the original, when the room got taped up in this factory. And then that crane came through and broke that room apart. And this was the really interesting part. They broke the room apart, and then it just like shoots to the I
remember the modem.
Like the phone cord jack or the phone cord thing for the wall on the floor. So I don't know if it was like the ghost then was like free and got into that somehow. That's what I took it as. It was kind of like this cheap take on this is how they broke free and got into the internet.
Yeah, I know they talk about like the gate is now open kind of stuff and everything. And I wish like when it comes to like something that they could have explained a little more of, I wish that I understood that because like you're using this the idea of that the internet is somehow allowing ghosts to travel into our world, but like that's it. Like they explain nothing beyond that. Like that sentence is it, and it's like that doesn't do it any service because like okay, but why?
Right,
like,
and it looks like some are trapped almost in the computer reliving this scene while others are out in the world turning into smudges.
And now maybe they explain that more because there are 2 sequels to this film.
Oh God.
And everything.
Japanese sequels to this film?
Yeah. Yes. So maybe they explain it a little bit more there. I might entertain the fact of checking it out in hopes that it explains a little bit more and stuff. But I'm not gonna subject you fine ladies into that. But I will subject you to other things. But no, like, so
it just left me with a lot of questions, and I'm the one that usually doesn't give questions. Like, this is what's happened. Okay, cool. I don't care if it doesn't make sense. But I think because these scenes were so drawn out, it gave me time to be like, to like sit and think. To try to just like figure out, because if it's fast paced, then I don't have time to really think deeply about what's happening. With this, I did. And then it's those, like I said earlier, where it's like, okay, what did I miss? I clearly had to have missed something because this is making no sense. This isn't linking.
And this is not a endorsement or not on it, but it's that whole thing of, is that on purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
Like it like whether that's for the better or the worse, it's like, is the intention to be vague, so correct. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like sitting for 2 hours being confused. That's not fun.
That's true.
So with that, do you girls want to get into your reviews? Because like I said, there's not a lot to like spoil. So like
you already explained all the parts that were the exciting parts, and that's literally the only exciting part. So it's like, well, there's nothing really else to share about the movie. The movie ends. She gets who was it? Michi gets on the boat with Kawashima. I thought
Michi died.
No, Haru died.
Oh, that's right. Haru died. You're right.
Yeah, it was me. I believe it was Michi and Kawashima. They make it onto the boat, and then Kawashima dies, and that's the end of the movie. Like it's they're like, we're just gonna keep going until we can't. Like that's always this thing of like trying to escape it. Like there's an end to it, but it's the entire world. Like it gets to the point where you see like this massive plane crash over the city, like everybody's leaving, everybody's killing themselves, but
there's no bodies, there's no it's no chaos, it's just very quiet and very
correct. It's the act of isolation. Everything is it's not how it's happening, it's that it's happening.
Right.
Correct.
Everything is going away. And yeah, that's basically the whole film. It gets to the point where it's just Michi and the ship captain. Yep. And that's it. Like, that's the end of the film.
That we know of.
And she's like, I'm here with my best friend or something like that. And then you see Kurosawa just kind of like be there, like draped over, and then just a smudge on the wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
So weird.
That's that.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to be the first to give their reviews?
I'll do it.
Okay, you can be the sacrificial lamb. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm not there. We already talked about the movie and gave our perspectives. Like, I don't have anything further to say other than it was a movie. If you want to watch it. I would prefer, if like I do, to watch it with like the reading instead of it being dubbed, because I think being dubbed would probably take away the entire aspect of this movie. So because you're going to be hearing like English people speaking probably, and just don't do that. So
Michi, come over here, Michi.
Yeah.
I have to show you something.
Yeah, there is something to be said about that. I couldn't follow the characters for half of it. Like I was like, I think that's who that is. I don't know. I'm terrible with names. I don't get.
I have a list of names and pictures in front of me.
I
don't want to put it on that I memorized these names.
Yeah, well,
I had to get it up because I didn't want to butcher their name.
Correct. And so like I don't remember anybody's name at all, not one. But I'm also really bad with names.
You like the J-pop star? You thought he was handsome?
Yeah,
with that hair.
Yeah,
Kawashima. Yeah,
he did, and he was one of the characters that had like really high points in his acting, I guess, and compared to everybody else. But anyway, I'm just gonna say that I would personally not recommend this movie. I would not watch this movie again. I would not recommend this movie to my kids. It's not for me at all in any capacity. And it has nothing to do with it being international. It was boring. So boring. So boring.
Did it bore you to death?
Getting there. Yeah.
It did its job.
It did. It was so boring. And I was with Tasha, like, it doesn't make sense a lot of times. And you're kind of questioning it. I mean, I followed along pretty well, but like, it wasn't interesting enough to even care. I know that sounds terrible, but it is. So I gave this, because I'm being nice, and I'm prefacing it by saying that I'm giving this a 2-star, like out of 10, because I'm like, I would not watch this. I would not. And I'm tired of being really nice about movies just because they have a different intention when I'm bored out of my fucking mind. So no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So
that's fair.
Okay, Tasha.
That's actually lower than I thought. I thought you were going to give it a 3. But.
Now, I was considering it because like we were talking about it. I'm like, oh, this is hyping me up. Maybe this. Yeah. I'm like, fuck that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm giving my initial review because that is what I wrote down, and that is how I felt after I watched the movie, and that is the most legit way of understanding my perspective. So,
what you got, Tasha?
The only good parts were the ghosty parts. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm just going to make it very short. We've talked about everything else. I couldn't follow it. I didn't know what was going on. I fell asleep.
Yeah. The first time this year, because she hasn't been falling
asleep during Evil Dead 2.
That's
so
true.
Don't even.
Yeah, but she's been doing better this year.
She was so good.
She's doing good. Yeah.
I'm giving it a 3, and that was what I thought. Finishing it up. Yeah, the ghosts are so well done, but everything else, no bueno.
Okay, so I'm here to break the curve. So
you don't break it enough to make it passing, but go ahead.
No, that's not my point. I mean, by no means. Like, we're going to like the score of this after everything is going to say you're more than likely not going to like it, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you won't. It's not I would not say this is a bad film by any means. It's just not for. Right. It is not for everybody. It's very few people, I would say. You have to be very open-minded. I'm not saying that you girls are closed-minded, but you literally have to go into this taking it for what it is and with zero expectations.
But no, if you do that, you're going to have zero idea of what's happening.
I agree with Tasha. I think you should have an idea of what you're going into and preparing yourself for that.
That's not what I'm saying. Oh. What I'm saying is going into it with no expectations. I'm not saying like not understanding it. I'm saying not expecting it to be good or bad or to get a full narrative or, this is going to be this, that, or the other. Just expecting it to be a thing. Like, that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
That being said, there's a lot that I really liked. The CG was terrible though. I really like the ghost stuff. I really like the underlying narrative of isolation, depression, suicide, all that kind of stuff. Do I like that stuff? No, but I think it was very, very well done. Like in the sense of like, I jokingly kept saying like, are you bored to death? But realistically, like I kind of think that's the point of it. It's supposed to make you feel like that. It's wanting you to do that. I love the ghost in this film and everything. All that being said, I'm giving this movie a 5.5 out of 10. Like I said, I bounced around on it a little bit. The reason I had it kind of at a 6, I dropped it to a 5.5 specifically just because of its length. I wish it was a little shorter. It would have bumped up a little bit more. But yeah, so that gives us a 10.5 totally for this film, which basically comes out to like a 35%.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, while my score is very low, I am interested in watching more Japanese horror movies.
Agreed.
Just to see what it's like.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. As long as it's not slow. Like my biggest thing is it just has to have better plot and not be so slow. Like that's just not my thing.
Yeah, like, and that's again my only defense for any of that realistically was the intention to be that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got. But yeah. So if you stuck around this long, it's movie club time.
Whoop, whoop.
So for next week, we are going to be watching a French horror film.
Mm-hmm.
We ourselves, a little behind the curtain, we've already watched this together. We actually got to watch this just last night. Mm-hmm. All of us side by side in unison.
Yep. We don't get to do that very often.
So that was amazing.
That's nice.
But we are watching the 2003 French slasher film High Tension.
Yeah.
This is you can watch this on Freeve and Tubi with ads. I would suggest you watch this without ads. So
you can rent it on Prime.
You can rent it for like $3 or $4. You know,
that's what we do.
I would suggest doing that. It's dubbed, but you're also getting a lot of French in it, so it's all over the place with that.
It is. You have to read a little bit, but then some of it's English. But when it is dubbed, it actually is not like terrible. It's actually pretty decent.
Correct. But yeah, so we will be watching the French slasher film High Tension for the next episode. I'm very excited to talk about that.
Yes, so am I. Yeah,
I was very excited to show you girls that movie.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I know.
And then also don't forget to stop by our Facebook and our Instagram this week for our weekly question.
Yes, and if you got any questions, complaints, all that stuff. There's always a commercial earlier on in the episode, but I'm going to say it anyway. Hit us up at potofthedead666@gmail.com. We always want to hear from you guys about questions.
Or you can DM us on our pages too, on Facebook or Instagram, because if that's easier for you.
Yep, and we've got what's the other one? The TikTok.
Yeah,
we got the TikTok.
We're doing more on that now, so you can hang out with us there.
Yeah, so the whole big thing is realistically at the end of the day is to make this a movie club. Yeah. I want to watch movies and talk about movies with you. Yeah. And I want to hear
not just us. Yeah.
Right.
I want to know your guys' perspective. Yes.
Correct. Why you love this film.
Correct.
Why you hate this film.
Yeah.
What this film did to your family.
Yeah. And if we're posting a video about a movie that we've watched and we've rated it and stuff, you guys come on there and tell us what you rated it. If you guys have seen it. So we want to know. We want to be like, oh, maybe somebody else is agreeing with us. Maybe somebody's
tell
not.
Us how horribly wrong we are.
Yeah. Yeah. We usually, not all the time, but we usually have vastly different ratings. Tasha and I have been on par pretty much for a while here, but most of the time we're pretty up and down in terms of what we like. And I'm sure whoever's listening to this is too. If you watched or listened to, our episode from last week, X, that was one of the ones we were all, riding the coattails of amazingness, but it doesn't always happen that way. So we are, especially in like this movie.
Yeah. And we've got a couple, we've got a French film, And then after that, we've got one more foreign film, and then we'll be out of foreign film February. So the whole point of this month, though, is just to kind of, dip our toes into something that is just out of our comfort zones and stuff, and really see horror around the world.
Yep.
So yeah, any other things you girls want to say?
I don't think so.
No.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here. So for Pod of the Dead, I'm Nicholas.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tasha.
Come back and listen to us, or else.